Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. Today we're going to talk about squash bugs. We're going to look at squash and zucchini plants. I'll show you how to identify their eggs. We'll look at the bugs at different life stages, and we'll talk about how do you manage them in your garden. This is a third wave of zucchini here in August. I plant these in succession. I recommend continually planting squash and zucchini. You want to look on the undersides of the leaves. When the plants are this small, it's really easy. There are no squash bug eggs on there. So it's pretty easy to check plants when they're smaller. Let's go over to a more mature plant. This is a more mature plant. There are squash bugs in there, and you can see just how many leaves there are. So the best way to prevent squash bugs from taking over a squash plant, zucchini plant, is to really inspect each leaf. And now it can be a lot when it looks something like this. So you want to do this at least really every other day, and you're basically just turning leaves over. Exactly, what I said. You're inspecting the leaves. It's a little bit late in the season. There's some eggs right there. I'll zoom in on that. Usually it's a cluster of like anywhere from 10 to 20 eggs. And those are your squash bug eggs. To get rid of them, you can put a piece of tape right on here. That will pull them off, get rid of them. You can also rub them off when they're young. They need the leaf to stay alive. They'll fall to the ground, they'll go away. But you want to be looking on the undersides of the leaves. Here's a cluster of eggs. This is what they normally look like. There's a lot of them, so if you're not inspecting the leaves, you can get hundreds of eggs all over your squash leaves. And when they hatch, the plant's just going to be a mess. When I water my squash plants, be it summer squash or winter squash, I just like soaking them down at the base. Now they need lots of water, so this is wonderful, but also the squash bugs don't like the water. So if we keep watering with this method, and then you stop, any of the squash bugs down there are going to crawl up the zucchini plant. So I go through, water this in different places, and then I come back and inspect and see which adults are laying around. And you're just really getting in there, soaking everything down. And let's see what climbs to the surface. There's an adult crawling up. And this is how I typically control them. Again, this plant got out of control because it was just so hot out, I wasn't inspecting everything. Evidently, I missed a lot of eggs on here, so they're in different stages of hatching. But you just go in, do exactly what I did. You'll find the adult, larger beetles or larger squash bugs down here, and you do have to smash them. When they're larger, they seem to be more resistant to the soapy water spray. There's an adult right there. This is what the adult looks like. And they're really resistant to dusts and bug sprays. You have to contact these with an insect spray, so I don't like spraying everywhere because it gets on flowers and stems on good insects. A stronger soap, like a detergent soap, will work, but you only want to spray them when they're this size, when they're down on the base of the plant. Spray soap right on the leaves tends to damage the leaves, but the leaf, stems, the vine itself is pretty strong. The reason why you want to plant your squash and zucchini in succession, meaning you plant some in June, that gets to something like this, you plant again in July, middle of July, beginning of August, is because pest and disease will eventually kill them off. We're going to try and manage down the damage from the squash bug, and you can do a pretty good job, but they are really difficult to kill off. If we look right in here, you can see those little gray insects. The damaged leaf is a clue. That's probably where they all hatched. And you can see them in different sizes. Those are a little past the hatchling stage, more juvenile squash bugs. They look gray, and then they mature to that brown color. I'm sure we'll find them soon. So I wasn't inspecting these regularly because I got tired with all the heat that was around here. But if you turn the leaf over, especially where there's damage, that's probably where you're going to find squash bugs. There's one right there. And you're going to want to hit these with a soapy water spray when they're young like this. Look at them all. And that controls them at this stage because they're not really fully formed. A mild soap spray will kill them off. And you also want the spray to be mild enough that it doesn't damage the leaves. Here's some Squash bugs pest, the hatchling stage. They're really gray. When they first hatch, they're much smaller than that, and they're totally black. They look almost just like legs, almost like spiders. So a soapy water spray will take care of the hatchlings and the juveniles. Look at all those. Now, that's what happens, you know. In the beginning, let's get another close-up of all of those. In the beginning, you're going to find a couple of squash bugs. They're going to be laying eggs. If you don't inspect your leaves, you could get hundreds of eggs all over your leaves. They hatch, you get this, and all the hatchlings, the juveniles, start killing your plant off. Squash bugs are really resistant to insecticides. You want to find the damaged leaves. You can see some crawling around there, and just lightly dust, usually in the evening, around where the leaves are damaged, something like that. And they're going to crawl through there. You don't want to get the dust on the flowers or anything like that, because any dust, even if it's organic, which is what I recommend, still kills good insects like bees and pollinators. The other thing you can do is put the dust just down on the stems. You know, you don't want to get into the flowers, you know, something like that. And adults and growing squash bugs will crawl through that. But they are pretty resistant to the dust. It's the soapy spray that seems to work the best, smashing the squash bugs and removing the eggs. I would probably remove that flower too, because it's a little close to the insect dust. It's really important you test spray. That means you make a soapy water spray in this case, spray a couple leaves of the zucchini plant, they have tons of them. Wait 24, 48 hours. If there's no damage, you can use the spray on the rest of the plant. Also, if there's no damage, you can increase the amounts of soaps or detergents, make it stronger, and you want to get to the point where it does no damage to the plant, but it's the maximum amount of soap, and it's more likely to kill off the squash bugs. Why do you have to test spray, and why can't I give you an exact recipe? Because you're going to have all kinds of different soaps available to you that are different than maybe me or another gardener. You have degreasers, which is not really a soap, it's a detergent. You have milder detergents, more like soaps. You have Castile type pure soaps that have nothing in there. That's what I like to use. This is more powerful, this is less powerful. The Castile type or the pure soaps are the least powerful. They also do the least amount of damage, so you can use more. Check out the video description for my DIY playlist. It shows you how to make white oil, which is soap and water. Also how to control ants, and it talks more in depth. The white oil video talks more in depth about how to make a soapy water spray, basically. You just don't use the oil in there. So what does that mean? I'd like to make this in a half-a-gallon container or a gallon container. This stores, it lasts, and then you can just pour it into a hand sprayer or a bigger spraying 1 gallon container or something like that, a 1 gallon sprayer. In a gallon of water, 2 teaspoons of the concentrated super degreasers. Or if you're using something more mild, maybe 1 tablespoon to start. If you're using the Castile type soaps, which I don't have here, 1 or 2 tablespoons in a gallon of water. Remember, the soft-bodied, the juvenile squash bugs can pretty much be killed off by any of these mixes. The adult bugs, the adult squash bugs, really need a stronger type soap, and that's where the degreasers actually work. But you have to test spray it so that it doesn't damage your plant. And again, start with a less amount, test spray, add maybe some more degreasers, and then the final thing for squash bugs is you don't spray your whole plant. Spraying soap all over your plant isn't going to kill them. You have to contact them. So use this when you're targeting the squash bugs. Don't think that if I spray the whole plant, it's going to kill them. It won't. You have to get this on the squash bugs. Check out my blog, The Rusted Garden Journal. I will be doing a sister article to this so that you can get some information on the soap recipes for spraying them and just more detail so you don't have to write everything down. But when they're smaller, juveniles, a light soapy water spray that doesn't damage the leaves can kill them off. When they're larger, you really have to squash them, Maybe some insect dust down on the stems or a stronger soap spray down there will help manage them. The eggs, remove them with tape, but the whole goal is to really catch these squash bugs when they're laying the eggs. Kill them off, remove the eggs, and you're just not going to get an outbreak. They're always going to be around, but you can really manage down the damage by checking your plants. And of course it gets harder when the plants have this many leaves. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and please check out my podcast too, the Rusted Garden Homestead podcast. That's linked in the video description. Thanks for watching.